The son of immigrants who came here seeking the American dream, Andrew Yang. His parents taught him about hope and hard work, a leader in education. Andrew Yang, the founder of Venture for America, a nonprofit that helped create thousands of jobs. President Obama named Andrew a champion of change, and his ideas are a blueprint for a new way forward. An economy where big tech and Wall Street are held accountable. A healthcare system with Medicare for all that takes on drug companies to lower prices. A fight against climate change that confronts big polluters.
We have to rewrite the rules of the 21st century so that they work for us.
Andrew Yang, parent, patriot, not a politician. A new leader who understands that what's coming is the greatest economic transformation in history and who can lead us in the fight for the future that we want. For President Andrew Yang, a new way forward.
I'm Andrew Yang, and I approve this message.
Sometimes you've been down so long, it's hard to look up. You know, until you've been in a position where you don't know how you're going to provide for yourself from month to month, you have no idea what it's like to feel hopeless. Dr. Martin Luther King believed in leveling the playing field. He wanted to see poverty eradicated. And Dr. King was championing a guaranteed income at the time of his assassination. The freedom dividend is not just about money, it's about what it will empower people to do. Kyle Christensen and his mother Pam were selected as part of a pilot program to receive the freedom dividend for 1 year.
I don't know who would look after Mom if I weren't here. She was diagnosed with a blood cancer, and then after the 8 months of chemo, she had gone through all of her sick days, all of her personal days, and she lost her job as a result.
We have enough in this nation to take care of each other. $1,000 a month would give people a floor to stand on. You can breathe. You can exhale, and you're not so worried about your bills and how that's going to get paid. You may even be able to embark upon some other opportunities, which also engenders hope.
When Andrew told us we were getting $1,000 a month for the next year, I just felt light, like there's a weight off my shoulders. The $1,000 a month has helped by giving us just a little bit more breathing room, just enough to feel like we can live again.
Kyle's story is America's story.
This is a deeply American idea that Thomas Paine championed at the founding of the country. Martin Luther King fought for it in the 60s, and it was what he was fighting for on the day he was assassinated in 1968.
It is a cruel jest to say to a bootless man that he ought to lift himself by his own bootstraps. Now, one of the answers, it seems to me, is a guaranteed annual income, a guaranteed minimum income for all people and for all families of our country.
I believe that implementing a universal basic income honors the legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King. I'm supporting Andrew Yang because he's not just talking about ideas, he's talking about solutions. And the solutions that he's offering are going to change the world.
Over the last number of years, we have automated away 4 million manufacturing jobs in Pennsylvania, Ohio, Michigan, Wisconsin, Missouri, and Iowa, all states that were swing states and competitive, and all states that went to Donald Trump. So that's the state we're in right now, and unfortunately, I'm here to say things are going to get much, much worse. What we did to the manufacturing workers, we're about to do to retail workers, call center workers, fast food workers, truck drivers, and on through the economy.
The only thing I worry about is that some total unknown that nobody ever heard of comes along.
Then there's Andrew Yang.
Andrew Yang, entrepreneur and author of The War on Normal People.
Andrew, you're running for president.
Yes, I am. So we're in the third or fourth inning of the greatest technological and economic shift in human history.
He's looking at what's happening in tech and automation and AI, and he says this is going to be catastrophic if we don't figure out how to deal with it. And he thinks UBI is a solution.
Every American gets $1,000 a month.
I've never seen shareholders get upset when a company declares a dividend. This is a dividend for the American people. We are the richest, most advanced society in the history of mankind.
He's really been campaigning on a platform of ideas, and it's been fascinating to watch how that has taken off, and I think that kind of candidate really could make headway.
I'm Andrew Yang. I'm a serial entrepreneur. I'm not a politician. I'm a problem solver. Some people call me a futurist, and I say I'm a presentist. It's just that the other politicians are stuck in the past. Right now, 57% of Americans can't afford an unexpected $500 bill. What happens when you put $1,000 a month into their hands? Where does that money go? They're going to spend it, right? In their local community. Instead of GDP, we should be measuring childhood education rates, average income, mental health and freedom from substance abuse, environmental sustainability, the proportion of our elderly who can retire in quality circumstances. If we change the measurements, we can change everything. We spend twice as much as other industrialized countries on our healthcare than other countries because our system rewards activity and not healthfulness. And as president, I will move us towards Medicare for all and get the incentives right. Washington, D.C. is not a town of leaders, it's a town of followers. We need to create a wave in the rest of the country and bring that wave crashing down on their heads. And I'm here tonight to ask you, will you create that wave with me? Yes! Together, we can build a new economy that prioritizes human beings, and we can take this disaster of a presidency and swing it the other direction. We have to have our own vision and have the courage to say, if we invest in ourselves, then we will all win.
Please welcome to the stage
the next president
the next president
of the United States,
Andrew Yang.
I think being a parent changes your outlook on everything. Suddenly you're living for something greater than yourself, and you are interested in protecting our society, our culture, our environment for future generations. And I think that is why he decided to run for president. Andrew saw the problems that nobody else saw, and he saw that the best solution was something called universal basic income, which it sounded too good to be true. But the more he talked to me about it, I thought, wow, if this is possible, this would be the greatest thing to ever happen in our society, especially in terms of helping women who still make up the majority of the poor in our country. We all know at least one woman who's stuck in a bad situation where they rely on someone financially or they're in a job that exploits them. The freedom dividend would be such a game changer. Andrew has said that women do the hardest, most unrecognized work in our society. And it's true. I've been a stay-at-home mom, and I've worked at companies large and small, and hands down, being a mom is the hardest job. And just because I don't get a paycheck doesn't mean that there isn't value in that work. So I love the way that Andrew has reframed what work means, and nobody else would step up to do this if not for him.
Sometimes you've been down so long, it's hard to look up. Until you've been in a position where you don't know how you're going to provide for yourself from month to month, you have no idea what it's like to feel hopeless. Dr. Martin Luther King believed in leveling the playing field. He wanted to see poverty eradicated. And Dr. King was championing a guaranteed income at the time of his assassination. The freedom dividend is not just about money. It's about what it will empower people to do. Kyle Christensen and his mother Pam were selected as part of a pilot program to receive the freedom dividend for 1 year.
I don't know who would look after Mom if I weren't here. She was diagnosed with a blood cancer, and then after the 8 months of chemo, she had gone through all of her sick days, all of her personal days, and she lost her job as a result.
We have enough in this nation to take care of each other. $1,000 a month would give people a floor to stand on. You can breathe. You can exhale, and you're not so worried about your bills and how that's going to get paid. You may even be able to embark upon some other opportunities, which also engenders hope.
When Andrew told us we were getting $1,000 a month for the next year, I just felt light, like there's a weight off my shoulders. The $1,000 a month has helped by giving us just a little bit more breathing room, just enough to feel like we can live again.
Kyle's story is America's story.
This is a deeply American idea that Thomas Paine championed at the founding of the country. Martin Luther King fought for it in the 60s, and it was what he was fighting for in the day he was assassinated in 1968.
It is a cruel jest to say to a bootless man that he ought to lift himself by his own bootstraps. Now, one of the answers, it seems to me, is a guaranteed annual income, a guaranteed minimum income for all people and for all families of our country.
I believe that implementing a universal basic income honors the legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King. I'm supporting Andrew Yang because he's not just talking about ideas, he's talking about solutions. And the solutions that he's offering are going to change the world.
All right. Thank you for joining Securing the Bag. It is, what is today? It's January the 20th, 2020. And we have so much to talk about tonight and so very little time to do so because the singularity is near and the machine elves wait for no one. Y'all, it has been quite a while since I have done one of these Securing the Bag episodes, and I've been really wanting to come back to it, but forgive me if I'm a little bit rusty tonight because it's been a little while. Sometimes you got to get back into the groove of things. We all know how that feels a little bit. Today is Martin Luther King Jr. Day, where we are remembering a titan in the social justice movement. Really one of the first movements that we can think of. And so another thing that I was thinking of is that today actually marks the 63rd week of the Yellow Vest riots. There are a lot of global movements, a lot of global protests that are happening at the moment. It's indicative of what I fear may happen if we refuse to think about the ways in which the Fourth Industrial Revolution will continue to disrupt the workforce. So what I'm going to try here is hopefully my technology is going to work because I know that every time that I've tried to do one of these live streams, it has failed. If you guys can hear me all right, I would greatly appreciate it if you could leave something in the stream to let me know. All right. So here we are. Some of the headlines for today is people no longer believe that working hard will lead to a better life, survey shows, and this comes as economic prospects continue to skyrocket. By all accounts, people should be feeling the tides of a lifting, or should be feeling elevated by a lifting tide, but unfortunately it appears that that may not be the case. A growing sense of inequality is undermining trust in both society's institutions and capitalism, according to a long-running global survey. The 2020 Edelman Trust Barometer, now in its 20th year, has found many people no longer believe working hard will give them a better life. Despite strong economic performance, a majority of respondents in every developed market do not believe they will be better off in 5 years' time. This means that economic growth no longer appears to drive trust, at least in developed markets, upending the conventional wisdom. We are living in a trust paradox, quote unquote, said Richard Edelman, CEO of Edelman. Since we began measuring trust 20 years ago, economic growth has fostered rising trust. This continues in Asia and in the Middle East, but not in developed markets, where national income inequality is now the more important factor. Now, this harkens to something that you and I probably already know is Andrew Yang's been talking about this for quite some time. The dissolving trust in institutions is prevalent amongst first world countries, and it begs the question why. And if you're someone who traditionally believes in the idea of tight labor markets, low unemployment, you would be expecting people to be experiencing better wages because of heightened competition and, quote unquote, trickle down, which had some type of sway amongst people as they saw increasing boons from an economy that did affect everyone, that did really work for the working class more than 40 years ago. But I think that was really a lag period, something that wasn't indicative of really what would be continuing to transpire on. Oh, and of course, it didn't actually show up here. So I'm just going to make sure you haven't done these in so long. I've missed these. Josh, thank you so much for coming along to the stream tonight. Again, it has been a little while since I have done on these streams, and there we go. Okay, perfect. So y'all just hang in there with me here as we get right back on track. And I'm hoping that for the rest of this week that I can start continuing to do these probably around 8 p.m. And I've got some things lined up where I might have some guests along with me on the show, but we will see how it goes. So great. Thank you guys so much for that feedback. Fears are stifling hope, and long-held assumptions about hard work leading to upward mobility are now invalid. The growing trust chasm between the elites and the public. 56% of the surveyed global population said capitalism in its current form does more harm than good in the world. Most employees, 83% globally, are worried about job loss due to automation, a looming recession, lack of training, cheaper foreign competition, immigration, and the gig economy. 57% of respondents worry about losing the respect and dignity they once enjoyed in their country. That's a huge one right there. We'll come back to that in a second. Nearly 2 in 3 feel the pace of technological change is too fast. Australia recorded one of the largest declines of trust in technology. So I wanted to point out that one of the things I've noticed is that a lot of people who watch my show I can actually see are from Australia. So how are you all doing down there? You guys are really in my heart. I hope that the live fires. Let me move over this way just a little bit here. That the wildfires, I actually haven't been keeping up in the past couple of days, but it did not seem to be getting any better the last time that I checked on them. I want you guys to know that you are always in my heart, and it's always really cool to see that Australians are big kind of fans of mine, right next to Canadians too. I love Canada. I've always wanted to visit sometime, but it seems that Australians are really fearing technological job loss, especially with the gig economy, and that's something that I feel as well. A lot of times when people are speaking about automation and technological displacement, it's this incorrect look at what is not a one-to-one, you're losing your job to robots, but it's actually the ways in which the technology is upending the ways that labor is able to leverage itself in the market. Think of Uber. If you are a taxi company, this is a competitor, and it's a competitor that's able to undercut you. And if the workers don't want to work, it's okay, because anyone within a mile radius can see a surge price and take it on the dot. It's instantaneous labor negotiation that we've never seen before, and I don't think anyone was prepared to deal with at the turn of the 2010s, really, when smartphones really took off. We now observe an Alice in Wonderland moment of elite buoyancy and mass despair, he said. While 65% of the worldwide informed public, aged 25 to 65, university educated, and in the top 25% of household income, said that they trust their institutions. I wonder why that might be. Why, if things are going pretty well for you right now, that you might trust the institutions that are also in the same boat with you. Only 51% of the mass public, everyone else representing 83% of the total global population, said the same. The result is a world of two different trust realities, the report says. The informed public, wealthier, more educated, and frequent consumer of news, remain far more trusting of every institution than the mass population. In a majority of markets, less than half of the mass population trust their institutions to do what is right. There are now a record 8 markets showing all-time high gaps between the two audiences and alarming trust inequality. Trust levels among the informed public in Australia were at 68%, far higher than the 45% recorded among the mass population, which is pretty interesting that the Australians are worried about technological change, but they trust their institutions more than the rest of the world. One of the things that I wanted to come back to very quickly was this line here that 57% of respondents worry about losing the respect and dignity they once enjoyed in their country. And I wanted to take tonight to be an opportunity. I tweeted this out earlier in the day, and we're just going to have a quick laugh at my expense. I wanted to talk about some of the ways in which my own crowdfunded universal basic income from this channel have transformed my life, and be kind of a poster child for what a universal basic income can do. But the question of respect and dignity in the grander scheme of people in the workforce is something that this is a tricky problem that I'm not too sure if a universal basic income will right off the bat fix. So really quick, this is a picture that I took of myself back when I was in the workforce. And by anyone's standards would probably say that if you're employed, that's a more dignified place to be than you're not employed. But right now, technically, I am unemployed. And this is kind of my full-time job. And thank all of my supporters for helping me out here. But as I was looking back, I could see the ways in which my life was crumbling in the workforce. This was just over a year ago, the very first picture that you can see here. And that's me. I don't know why I have that tie on. Don't ask me. My good friend took this picture and refused to delete it. And I'm kind of glad that he didn't, because this is a sobering moment and one of extreme gratitude that I can have. I was gainfully employed at that time, but I hated my life, and I drank way too much. I did not work out. I would just, consume to try and cope with my existential despair of being in the workforce. And I've talked a lot about the ways that trichotillomania and anxiety and panic attacks really kind of contributed to my decision to save up as much money as I could, leave the workforce, and try to do something like this online. But in this picture, you can clearly see that it's not just hair pulling that caused a problem for me. Now, in terms of what this means for the article that I'm talking about, is the question of respect and dignity, employment, gainful employment, the idea that you are doing better than your parents did before you, and the idea that you're leaving your children opportunities and open doors and ways in which they can express themselves in the workforce. This is so important. This is, it's not spoken about enough. In how in 2016, I think there was a large movement of people who felt that their lives were being worsened and worse off. And I just saw a opinion piece, which I forget exactly which headline this appeared in, but it was saying that 2016 was mostly racism from people who are upset at seeing black people do well. And this was a timely article to be written on Martin Luther King Jr. Day. And I'm not saying that it's completely wrong, and I would hate to believe that there's a large amount of people out there who, even though they might be doing okay themselves, aren't happy to see other demographics doing well and doing better. I'm going to scroll away from this. Distracting. I'm sorry about that. Actually, I'm just going to get away from this real quick. Cool. Great. Yeah. So, I think, though, that the larger issue, other than the seeing other demographics do well, is seeing your own demographic not doing as well. And I would like to see a world in which we get away from this puritanical work obsession. And that's kind of the reason why I wanted to put myself out there as I just did. And I'm hopefully going to not look at any of the comments there, but have a laugh at me, please. That's part of why I'm doing this. I want to break the illusion of our puritanical work ethic, because your identity should be more than what you do. It should be more than what you take home. It should be more about who you are in your community. But of course, our communities, as it stands right now, are pretty much hinged on what people do for a living, the work that they do. Nonprofits and charities are very nice, but they're not as prevalent as they should be. And while I can act as someone who is able to be in non-traditional work, quote unquote, doing YouTube videos and whatnot, I know that if we don't address the coming disruption, the coming technological disruption that awaits us all, and we don't address the possible ways that we have created an unhealthy hole that we've dug for ourselves, with our identity being so ingrained in the work we do and the progress that we make. You know, you could say by certain accounts I'm living a minimalist lifestyle. I'm not living luxuriously, although I do have an abundance of time. Time is something that is usually reserved only for the extremely wealthy. I don't think that's talked about enough. Time is the ultimate resource, given me the ability to, which is so huge, and I can suddenly start thinking 5, 10 years in advance. And it also changes the idea that I have about the work that I'm making, and it's changed my relationship to it. But I want to bring these things up and talk about them a little bit more. And if you find that you have questions that you would like to ask of me, I am more than happy to answer those. So in terms of the question of, I was linking this to something here. I got to check my show notes real quick. Again, I'm rusty just a little bit. We all have to keep discipline within our our work. And like I said, it's been a few weeks, so I haven't been doing that well with this. Oh, Lord, it's right here. Okay, so why I'm bringing all this up is that New York Times editorial board just today released their announcement of who they're endorsing for the 2020 election. And it's not just one person, it's two. It's Amy Klobuchar and Elizabeth Warren. I do have to admit, I'm a bit surprised. I was expecting if they were going to do two, it would have been Biden and Warren. So, Amy Klobuchar, that's different than Biden. I'll give them that. But I'm sitting back today and just thinking how bizarre and how absolutely strange it is that they are endorsing two candidates who haven't even mentioned the fourth industrial revolution one bit. The number one job in 29 states, truck driving. I know I sound like a broken record, but really I feel like I need to be a broken record because this isn't being talked about. The number one job in 29 states, truck driving, is at great threat of being massively disrupted. Last month, December of 2019, the very first self-driving truck made a coast-to-coast delivery in 3 days, only stopping for the requirements of the human that was accompanying it. It drove through rain, it drove through snow, it had no issues whatsoever, and it made a delivery of butter from California to Pennsylvania. And why are we endorsing people who aren't talking about this? I mean, it blows my mind. I feel like I'm going a little bit insane. I don't know how to deal with this. My mental state has improved so much because this is the first month that I'm living my own universal basic income. But at the same time, the more and more that I focus on this, the more unraveled I feel I'm becoming. It's ironic, isn't it? Let's go ahead and take a quick look at a tweet someone sent to me where this really highlights the problems that we're facing right now. And I'm going to have to find some way of pivoting if New York Times endorsement is indicative of the future, which I don't think it is. I haven't given up yet. It's easy to feel a little bit afraid, but I'm still holding out hope here. This was a tweet from the New York Times article of an interview with Elizabeth Warren. I don't know who's asking the question right now. I guess CW is the name of the journalist. But, quote, Andrew Yang said in one of the debates that you're applying a 20th century framework to antitrust when it comes to big tech. Why is he wrong on that? And what makes your proposal to break up big tech adequate? The unprecedented profits of Silicon Valley. And she responds, well, actually, you're going to have to explain to me what Andrew was. If I'm going to have to argue back against Andrew, you're going to have to tell me exactly what Andrew's argument is. Well, during the debate, he said it was a 20th century. No, I know what he said, but I don't know what that means. She doesn't know what that means. So this is really weird. That's a 20th century framework to antitrust when it comes to big tech. She doesn't know what it means. Let me go ahead and explain what Andrew means. Is that, yes, monopolies have historically been a type of thing that we had to prune on the tree of capitalism, right? One of the ugly sides of capitalism and free markets run amok are the fact that the natural end game of that is an accumulation of wealth, strong-arming competitors to the point that you have one company, one industry that is completely dominant to a degree that, the entire tenets of innovation and eventual trickle down to the consumer, to benefit the consumer, the ways that the consumer benefits from that kind of innovation, it doesn't apply anymore. And you can see this obviously from our telecom industry, which was broken up a couple of decades ago and now has consolidated again, because you've got certain aspects of our society where monopolies are more likely to pop up. The problem is given the ways that tech is structured, we are the employees of Facebook. We are the employees of Twitter. Facebook doesn't make content. Twitter doesn't make content. You are the employee. I am the employee. I'm the employee for YouTube right now. They're hosting the infrastructure, and that's basically the big difference. There is something to be said about the socialist point where they're saying, hey, who owns what here? It's a good question. I'll give them that. And that's the point, is when you're saying, oh, we need to break up these big tech companies, what does that look like? That's the question that Andrew was bringing up. And the fact that Elizabeth Warren doesn't understand this or doesn't seem to comprehend this just doesn't bode well. Because one of the points that I try to continually make time and time again is that exponential technology, exponential anything, is not how humans view things. We view things linearly. We think 1 to 2, 2 to 3, 3 to 4. We don't think 2 to 4, 4 to 8, 8 to 16 to 32. and then within a couple of cycles of that, you're in millions. That's the pace that technology is going. The problems that we're facing this year are going to seem very small 5 years from now, 10 years from now, and we need to elect someone who understands that. This is a problem. If you think most of our Congress right now just don't understand technology whatsoever, it wasn't that long ago that we had a CIA director who didn't use email because he didn't understand it. Most of our Congress is above the age of 50, and most of them are millionaires. That's a big problem right there. Most of them are white, too. This is just not good. It's just not good, if you ask me. That this is the response that the New York Times endorsement that they gave, that's the response that that person gave to this. And obviously, Amy Klobuchar is not any better of a choice here. That's what I'm saying. I'm getting increasingly unhinged as I see the media's treatment of Yang as it's continued through these past couple of weeks, and just knowing that there is this massive wave coming. It's like Game of Thrones. We've got the White Walkers at the north. They're coming down, and I'm Jon Snow, trying to head over to Daenerys and get her to help. Daenerys is Andrew Yang. He would be a great Daenerys. What am I saying? What am I doing? So anyways, where are we? What are we doing? I wanted to talk about some automation, but I wanted to bring this back to the Yellow Vest riots, which I brought up at the beginning of the show as I was struggling to get my groove. The Yellow Vest riots have gone on for the 63rd week this week. 63 weeks. You might be a little surprised to hear that. I know that I kind of was, because if you've been paying attention to the news here, you wouldn't have expected that to happen. Granted, the Yellow Vest riots have died down from where they were at their zenith, but they seem to be coming back a little bit more here in the beginning of the new year, and they never truly went away. Now, if you need a little bit of a refresher on the Yellow Vest movement, I'm going to do the best that I can, but please know I'm not French. I've never been outside of my state for more than about a week. I need a little bit more worldly experience, but I have been following along with this as best I can, and I think it's very prudent to the issues that the Yang Gang is focused on. And even if you're not in the Yang Gang, if you're here trying to understand a little bit more about him, maybe this will help. The Yellow Vest riots are sometimes said to have started after the implementation of a carbon fee. And this is a bit myopic because there was so much else going on. France actually had a similar type of election season as we did, where a populist was going against a centrist and the centrist won. So, well, that's not what happened here. But the populist there was Marie Le Pen. They got Macron. Macron is largely being characterized as a globalist, as an elitist, as a person who is there to serve the needs of the higher class, of the wealthy class, if you will. I've seen a lot of hilarious photos of his face on top of Marie Antoinette's absurd hairstyle and everything. So the thing is it's not right to say that it was the carbon fee, because that was the straw that broke the camel's back. What's really interesting is that the carbon fee is widely considered something that needs to happen if we're going to fight climate change, and especially in a more progressive country, which is France. This is a bit of a tricky subject to talk about, and right people will love to just say, see, look what happened. You try and attack the fuel industry, and you're going to get riots because this is all just a globalist scheme or something like that. And the thing is this is hilariously ironic, because a carbon fee on its face is a regressive tax. The poor disproportionately spend more on carbon goods than the rich do. And a carbon fee isn't going to really ruin any rich person's day, but if you're poor and you live away from the city and have to commute into work every day, it's going to kill you. It's going to break your back. And that is exactly what happened. And you ask anyone on the streets, why are they protesting? Most of the time, if they're being genuine about it and they're not out there just to throw things around, they're saying, we can't get by even on one job, even on two jobs. We are getting worse year after year after year. We're working the same amount, and things just continue to get worse and worse and worse. Andrew Yang also has a carbon fee in his proposal, but what he says is that we have to disproportionately benefit the poor with a a juxtaposing dividend, a carbon fee and dividend. So just like when you hear all the time about people saying that the VAT tax is regressive, but then they neglect to see what the dividend does, the freedom dividend, this is the same kind of concept. If you're going to try and get away from climate, from the fossil fuel industry with a carbon fee, which is necessary because it's a, what's the term for it? Help me out here. It's a putative? No. Putative? Not, no. Someone's going to help me in here, and I'm going to feel like a complete idiot. It's a Piguvian. Yeah, I should know this. It's a tax meant to discourage the consumption of said good. So this carbon fee would do that. You have to go through and send whatever proceeds you have back to the poor so that they can still afford the gas to get into town as you're making the transition to renewable energies. That's the crucial part, and that's what everyone has already signed on to. You have so many Nobel laureates, so many ex-feds of or ex-chairs of the Fed signing on to this, saying, yes, carbon fees are good, but you have to do a dividend as well. France neglected to do that, and now they're seeing the rioting's ensue as well, because this was at the tail end of a chain of quote-unquote globalist policies, which weren't helping quote-unquote normal people. The reason why I think this is so important to talk about is because when Yang has really outlined and illustrated the issues that he sees us facing if we don't do anything, this is exactly the thing that he's talking about. He's going to be saying, hey, look, by every single metric, GDP is going to be great. It's going to lead us off of a cliff if we follow it blindly. The rules have changed, and no one's talking about it right now. France right now is the canary in the coal mine, in my opinion. We should expect to see so much more of this as the years continue. And it's so weird to see billionaires showing up at Davos right now, and like they're scratching their heads asking what's going on, why all of the signs look great, everything's going well, why is the world on fire? And it's because we're obviously measuring the wrong metrics. We're not talking about the real issues at play. And absurdly enough, the left isn't allowing this conversation to even happen for reasons that I don't really want to get into in today's episode. But we'll probably continue on here. Before I do like a hard segue and transition, I am going to take a moment just to look through some of the chat, see what everyone's talking about here. 33 people in the stream right now. Hey guys, Yang Gang, thank you for joining me tonight. Again, I wanted to just thank everyone who is in the stream right now. You have changed my life. You've just transformed my life. Let's take a quick look back at this picture from more than a year ago. Let's see. Look at that. This change is because of you guys. I owe you my life. I love y'all. So let's see here. Carbon tax addresses the externalizing of burning carbon. I'm 1 minute behind live. All right. Yes, exactly. Part of the issue that we're facing now is that renewable and solar is increasingly competitive to existing prices. We still have to deal with the cost of storing that energy. But there are so many cards in the fossil fuel players' hands that keeps them going. Oh yeah, I didn't transition the photo, so you guys aren't going to see that. Well, that's good because you only needed to see it once. And without the dividend, it's a policy that actually will hurt the poor and cause undue. It's like, imagine if you just put the VAT tax on consumers and you didn't give them the freedom dividend. That in that case, yeah, no, it's absolutely regressive. There's no reason that you would expect that to be anything other than regressive. Andrew has the answer to the carbon issue affecting the poor. It's in his nuclear stopgap policy, which to me is his #1 policy. I love that that's the #1 policy for you, because for climate change, there are some people out there who climate change above all else, and I can absolutely understand where they're coming from. As I've become a little bit more able to breathe with my own universal basic income, all of my anxieties is just shifting over to, oh my God, the world's on fire. What are we going to do about the world completely on fire right now? Biodiversity is increasingly vanishing. So, there might be something to be said about there's absolutely no way to get away from anxiety without some serious meditation and introspection. But again, this is why I love the idea of the freedom dividend so much. You get the economic boot off of people's throat. They're suddenly able to deal with the real problems in life. They're suddenly able to deal with issues of a grander scale, like climate change. And ideally, sometimes I wonder, like, hey, should I continue making these videos? But the reason is, the only reason I've got my universal basic income is because of the channel. And if it weren't for that, if I just had the UBI, I'd like to think that I'd be going out and doing some more impactful things in the world around me. But I do think that this is impactful. Again, I want to act more and more as someone who can explain and show and say, this is what it's done for me. Look at the ways that I'm able to breathe, and hopefully look at the ways in which I can bring value to the world that isn't a traditional expression of work. I've been getting into some arguments with people lately who are like, no, but you are actually doing the exact same thing that the bourgeoisie do. Someone called me petite bourgeoisie a few days ago because he said that I'm using the means of production to gain income or something like that, because I guess I built my computer and now I've got a video cam. Did I buy the means of production? I don't know. But apparently I'm a class traitor in that sense, and it blows my mind because we're reaching parts of political identity that, are just further beyond me. Where am I going with this? It's a tangent. I do that a lot. If you're new to my live streams, you'll have to get a little used to that. Right now, Yang is alive in Iowa. Paget is phone banking live. Hashtag MLK 2020 is trending on 5 on Twitter. And have you seen the amazing ad? Yes, I played it at the beginning of the show a little bit, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that here. And the dividend is live. It's a good day. A mind with heart. Thank you. Thank you for joining my stream. So glad to have you here. I hope that your night is going wonderfully, because I know that mine is. And that's, gratitude and appreciating the things around you are so important. So today is Martin Luther King Day, and there's been a lot of discussion in the chat groups that I've been in about, like, what does that mean for the Yang gang? Because Martin Luther King was a proponent of universal basic income, and it's so bizarre because it's this weird place. Normally I bristle at the topic of cultural appropriation or appropriation because I think a lot of times it's blown out of proportion. But this is one of the cases where I can see there being a place where you could be appropriating Martin Luther King's words and not actually being completely genuine about it. And that's why I've tried to hold off on really making that link today. But with that being said, my thoughts are, if he were alive today, which I wish he were, we need more people like him in this world. I don't know why there haven't been people after him to do things that he did. I wish I was alive back then, because I'm craving that kind of leadership. And Andrew Yang right now feels like the closest thing to it in terms of how hopeful I feel when I'm thinking of the future. But if he were alive right now, I think that he would be, if not not endorsing Yang's proposal, but like bringing more attention to it, right? The thing that I thought would happen with Yang's inclusion in the debate would be, hey, like, universal basic income is an important policy. Let's talk about it more. Why isn't Bernie talking about it more? Yes, Martin Luther King was a socialist, but at the same time, when he said, I'm now of the opinion that the best way to end poverty is with an unconditional cash, a basic income. And I think that that's correct. Whether you're a capitalist, whether you're a socialist, whether you get caught up in these political identities or not, there is something to be said about the power of unconditional cash transfers. And there's something to be said about the fact that it is wealth redistribution. I thought the fights that I would be fighting right now would be with people on the right saying, hey, no, this isn't socialism, but it is socialism, kind of, right? It's redistributing wealth. But wages are wealth redistribution too, if you think about it in a certain way. A lot of people have issues with me when I say that, but it's true. Our economy only works when we have redistribution. And I think that there's something to be said about a way that we can have enough wealth that you can redistribute an amount to eliminate the requirement of basic needs. And in fact, maybe benefit from the innovation of capitalism as it drives down costs. And of course, hopefully pruning that tree of capitalism when you have to deal with monopolies, and finding increasingly modernized ways to do it if those monopolies are non-traditional industries like the tech industry. So that's a little bit of a tangent right there, but yeah, Martin Luther King Jr. Day, the dude was undoubtedly a massive force in this world and changed the world completely. And the fact that he understood universal basic income as what it is lends so much credence to the policy, to the platform, and gives me even more fire to try and fight for it and make sure that it becomes a reality. It was so hard to watch the interview, New York Times. Oh, I'm not sure what interview you may be speaking of, and I should watch it, but I was just thinking of the Black and Brown Forum that Yang showed up to today, that was hosted by Vice News, and that was incredibly difficult to watch. They spoke a little bit about the regressive VAT thing. It blows my mind that the regressive VAT issue is like held such a footing like it has in this cycle. I could not have imagined that happening because, like I brought up with the carbon fee and dividend, you can see things being regressive in a vacuum, but the outcome of it has to be so much different. And I don't see why they would get so caught up in that. It was clear that those interviewers did not like Andrew Yang's proposal whatsoever. And it was just bizarre because they brought up like, hey, yeah, Martin Luther King has talked about this, and a lot of black economists have spoken about how this would be a massive step in eliminating poverty, especially for disenfranchised minority communities. But there are some economists who say that the VAT is regressive and you would wind up doing a disservice to those communities. Like help me out with the thought process that the interviewers have there. I don't, for the life of me, anyone who is critically thinking about the dividend, how they wind up with, like, how they stop at, yeah, it's regressive. It's regressive and we can't do it. Man, shucks. I guess we got to go and do the federal jobs thing, right? Like, if you really do have this massive problem with the VAT being regressive, but otherwise love universal basic income as a whole, point me to the plan. Point me to what you want to do, but you don't want to do it. Like, you just don't want to do it. Yeah, like Bernie doesn't seem to want to do it, and that's what really bothers me. Okay, collect yourself. Think of green. That's a cosplay I'd love to see. I don't know about cosplays. I might do one. Who knows? If people in the chat really want me to, because, like, you guys are supporting my universal basic income. And if you want me to cosplay, I'll cosplay. Maybe. I don't know. That'll be like a private stream or something. Andrew is the most positive thing I have seen in 60 years. Yes, I completely agree. Also, no one talks about Andrew's rare earth element policy, which is in his nuclear stopgap policy, having rare earth elements processing plants back in the US to bring back middle-class jobs. And Bernie is anti-nuclear. He shut down the only nuclear plant in New Hampshire, and pollution levels have gone up since. Yeah, that's the thing. When you're dealing with climate change, don't just put all your eggs in one basket, is my opinion. Cast the widest net that you can. I don't see it, and it's so bizarre to me because, like, to be quite clear, I am not an energy expert, and it's not something that I massively focus on, although I could see me researching it more now that my anxiety is increasingly being put on climate change as a whole. But it's so clear, whatever discussion you see online or otherwise about like renewables and nuclear, that there are like some fierce ideologies at play. I don't know who's astroturfing what. I don't know who's getting paid what, but like there is clearly movement, and energy runs the world, so you would expect it to be the case. Good to have you back, Seth. Kenny, thank you. Thank you so much. It is good to be back. I'm feeling myself getting a little bit more back into the flow of things. Again, hopefully securing the bag will be a little bit more of a regular thing, because I've been struggling to get some more, post-edited content out. It's very strange. Sometimes you just aren't feeling it, and sometimes you got to force yourself just to start making something. And if you're a little bit of a creative type out there, remember that tomorrow, wake up, drink some coffee, do some yoga poses, go out for a run, and just do it. Just do it. Like, nothing's stopping you. And that's the reason why I'm doing this stream tonight, even though I'm a little bit unprepared. Let me see. We're going to just stream up a little bit more, and we'll continue on to the next portion of the live stream tonight. I think that might actually do it. I'm sorry if I've missed anyone, but I'm trying to get a better way of curating some of the comments so that I don't miss anyone. But Andrew is for an all of the above solution, which is correct. Yes, and it blows my mind that I can't that some people are just so, you know, they've got the blinders on and they can't actually see anything else. So on the question of inequality, which was the thing that we were really talking about too, there was another headline here that I thought was a little bit interesting, is that UN report says that 500 million people struggle to find adequate paid work. Study shows that global unemployment due to rise for the first time in a decade. Nearly 500 million people around the world are struggling to find adequate paid work, trapping individuals in poverty and fueling heightened levels of inequality, according to a UN report. In a study published as world leaders fly into Swiss ski resort of Davos to voice concerns over inequality in the climate crisis, the UN's International Labor Organization said that more than 473 million people around the world lack the employment opportunities to meet their needs. In addition, the UN agency said global unemployment was due to rise for the first time in almost a decade, as weaker levels of economic growth around the world led to the number of people out of work rising by about 2.5 million to stand at more than 190 million. The report comes as the UN said last week that trade tensions risk dragging down global growth this year, in a development that would derail international efforts to tackle poverty in low-income countries and distract from the task of decarbonizing the world economy. So this is interesting. There's a lot of nuance to be had about this specific article right here. Can I just move this? No. So cool. Sorry, y'all. I'm trying to do some cool stuff. But you could say that this number is actually a lot better than the historical precedent of how it's been in history. But the grander issue that I want to ask is, like, why are jobs so important, right? Isn't income a little bit more important? So, like, it's trapping people in poverty, quote unquote. But the most recent Nobel laureate did work with Give Directly and have spoken in the past about the power of unconditional cash transfers. Cash is like a medium by which people use to create opportunity. People trade currency, and that creates opportunity. And poverty is a lack of cash. But I also want to know just how much of this inability to find work is taking place in the first world. And if it is taking place in the first world, as we're having such staggering economic numbers, then it would lend a little bit more credence to the idea that we can do more with less. We could do more with, the just insane exponential productivity that you would expect to see. But, I'm afraid that these types of headlines, especially the one before it, speaking about inequality as a whole, are going to become more and more prevalent. I just watched Parasite last night, which was directed by, I'm not going to be able to get his name right just off of memory alone, but he did Snowpiercer. He did I believe it was Okja on Netflix. He is a fantastic director from South Korea. And I have to say, if you have not seen the movie Parasite, go check it out. You can only buy it for $14 right now on iTunes, but it's worth it in my opinion. It is like just a deeply cutting artistic look at the class struggle and capitalism. You can clearly kind of tell the story that he's been giving between Snowpiercer and Parasite. I don't want to spoil it. Like I don't want to say too much about this movie because it was just such a pleasure to watch, and such a pleasure to just gnaw your brain on afterwards and really kind of get what he's saying through so many different scenes. If I can quote the main character, it's just so metaphorical. But between that movie and Jordan, I'm doing so bad with names right now. He directed the movie Us just earlier last year, I believe. It seems that in our pop culture, increasingly, income inequality is really cutting through. It's something that the subconscious, dialogue within our nation, within our world, within our global planet is really starting to talk about, I think, whether we know it or not consciously. And that kind of worries me a little bit, because it's exactly the thing that I would expect to see more and more of as we can. We're going to take a quick transition towards automation and futurism here for the final half of the show. I wanted to bring up something that I saw about Walmart opening up a cashierless store. And I want to point out why it's not what you think it is. But first, we're going to take a look at this little video that I saw on Twitter. And I don't know what to think about this. Take a look. In Miami, we never miss an opportunity to party. Dancing erupts at the Walmart grand opening with hundreds of shoppers on site for day one. Retail may be in transition, but the everyday low prices model seems to be working fine. Look at all of these happy Walmart workers dancing in front of the grand opening of a completely cashierless store. And okay, so I feel a little bit bad. I don't want to like oh no, wait, no. The thing isn't up. Okay, wait, here we are. All right, here they are all dancing. And I feel a little bad because I don't want to be like making fun of them. There is something to be said about having a good time with the work you're doing. And I don't view any type of worker as above or below another worker. But I do think this kind of nonsense is absurd because they're being exploited. And I guess if you don't know you're being exploited, ignorance is bliss. So, sleep well, my fair princes and princesses. Like, okay, well, you know what? They might not have anything to worry about right now because when they talk about this being a completely cashierless store, I gotta get me some ad block. This is terrible. It's actually not a cashierless store, and this article really doesn't have much to say about it. I needed to find the other one. It's actually a stop and scan your own stuff. So they already have these in most stores. What's really a cashierless store is something like Amazon Go, which I would love to play a video of, but I'm sure that they would threaten to demonetize me because they've been doing that lately now that I'm able to monetize my videos. Let's get this quite clear right now, is that it's not a cashierless store if you are having to do the work of the cashier for you. And this is increasingly part of the problem of the gig economy, is that most of the time the gig economy isn't really automating anything. It's just getting people to do more of the work themselves or someone else be exploited for what would traditionally be a better paying job. If you're having to go up to the front of the store, get a scanner, and like beep everything in there, that's not any progress. But with Amazon Go, there's all these cameras and sensors within the store that are able to use artificial intelligence, machine learning algorithms, which have been developed over the last decade, to tell what it is that you've taken from the shelf, even if you put it back in a different part of the store. And as you just walk out without interacting with a single human being, unless you're buying alcohol, but I'm sure they're going to figure that out before too long. Just walk out, and then like within the next 30 minutes, it goes through, checks everything that you bought. It sends you an email, and then it's like, hey, was this everything? And some people have made videos where they've been like, oh no, they got this wrong, and I walked away with a free, yogurt or something. And people are like, oh, well, see, it doesn't work. No, that's called shrinkage, and it's a very common thing in retail. They don't care if they lose one thing here there, and it's going to get better over time. Now, that is true automation. That is truly a store which will, in the future, have far less workers than a traditional store would have now. And the fact that Walmart thinks that it's somehow progressively entering this new age of AI and automation by making the people shopping at their stores do the work themselves is absurd, right? I always wanted to see the type of industrial failure that you could see from industries, back during the .com bubble, the failure to compete with Amazon or Sears right now is kind of going through something similar. But you hear about all these stories of an ingrained industry being able to predict the future, being able to see where trends are going, but just utterly failing to like get it right. They know they have to do something, but they do it wrong, or they can get away with not doing anything at all. This is an example of it. Walmart is failing. They're failing so hard right now. And I first saw that headline, I was like, oh no, here we go. But it looks like it might be a few more years down the road. The biggest threat right now is how fast Amazon can open up these cashierless stores. And I've yet to see anything suggesting that there's any problem with that. They continue to open more. I think just in the past month or so, they continue to expand. They'll be taking up more and more of that market space. Amazon currently only employs about 600,000 people, whereas Walmart employs 1.6 million. And there are still people that have to work at these stores, but I do think this disruption is going to be much greater than the creation in the long term. in the long run. It's absurd, and that dancing just kills me. It kills me. I would love to have a good time at the work that I was doing, but knowing that I'm being exploited, there's all of these like managerial courses that people go through where they're like, hey, people like to be patted on the back. They like to be told that they're having that they did a good job well done. And this is how you can get away with not paying your workers more, because they respond more to a pat on the back than they do to a raise in price. And this is true. This is true. We are social creatures. We are human beings who crave the acceptance and status of our peers. That is what we are coded to respond to. The obtuse notion of a paycheck that you get every 2 weeks, a number that goes into account somewhere, it really isn't something that's going to make you happier. And especially if you reach a certain point, once your basic needs are met, even having more money doesn't really make you feel any different. But workers need a pay raise. They don't need a pat on the back, and they don't need little Congo lines. Like, hey, if they were all dancing here and they were being paid very well, and they could go home and have a nice 6 hours to spend with their family after work or something, or if they had a 4-day work week, I think that would be a little bit more reason to be dancing like that. But it's just a little absurd right now. It's real quick. And really, just to kind of, I think the last thing that we're going to take a look at here, which I feel really bad about, because I am just so happy about, yeah, Bob, I did just speak about the New York Times endorsement. What was his name, Seth? The short end of it was, it's absolutely absurd. It makes me insane to think that they've endorsed people who haven't even spoken about the fourth industrial revolution. Oh yeah, hey, my name is Seth. My the first name, I don't want to call you Mr. Dividend Report. It is Seth. So a lot of you guys in my chat have been talking about how much you appreciate my voice, and you're giving me just a massive, a massive ego. But I'm worried that some of the people who are saying, oh, you should just get into voice acting, or you should just get into reading books, might not be considering that line of work might not exist in the future. Okay, mostly I'm being a little bit of a fatalist right now. I think that it would be completely fine for me to seek out that kind of work. And I might be a little bit interested in it. If anyone in the chat knows of a way to enter that industry, feel free to reach out, because that would be something to keep me afloat if my channel doesn't quite work out. But no, I'm not even going to entertain that possibility. What we're going to take a look at right now is something called WaveNet. Now, WaveNet is the technology behind Google Duplex, which I've spoken about in episodes before. But it looks like it's just leaped even further in its ability to automate the human speech. We're going to take a listen to, I'll explain it after we're done listening. Let's see.
Need for this? Do we need a few hours? A few minutes? The answer is no, not at all. Hold on to your papers, because this new technique only requires 5 seconds. Let's listen to a couple examples.
The Norsemen considered the rainbow as a bridge over which the gods passed from Earth to their home in the sky.
Take a look at these pages for Crooked Creek Drive. There are several listings for gas station. Here's the forecast for the next 4 days.
So what we're seeing here is the very first sentence that you heard was the input sample. That was a real person speaking into a microphone and being recorded. And what you hear after that is the synthesized machine learning algorithm popping out a completely automated recording. So we'll take another listen
here.
The sky. Take a look at these pages for Crooked Creek Drive. There are several listings for gas station. Here's the forecast for the next 4 days.
So what's extremely interesting is that it only took 5 seconds worth of recording for them to use this algorithm to create an identical sounding voice to be used. Now, I'm speaking here for just over an hour, I think. I don't know how long this has been going, but needless to say, my voice could easily just be taken and ripped. There's something to be said about copyright, obviously, but they don't have to do this with just anyone's voice. They could do this. What's really interesting with this is that, like, you think about testimonials, you think about like John Hamm maybe doing a commercial for Aviation Gin. I'm sorry, that's Ryan Reynolds. But they could technically use this company, whoever it would be, whoever owns WaveNet, to like outsource and go like, hey, John Hamm, we want you to do a testimonial for Aviation Gen, Ryan Reynolds. You don't have to even show up, man. We get it. You're at the beach drinking a Mai Tai down in Hawaii. We don't worry about it. Just sign this. You'll get all the proceeds. The contract agreement, yada yada yada. He's like, great, yeah. They maybe ask his agent to send over a sample, and they have the rights to maybe just that one commercial. And all of a sudden, like, he doesn't have to do anything. They use his voice, and then they're also able to use like a completely random generated voice that doesn't have any actual face tied to the end of it, to do away completely with any voice acting. It might be something else if they have to use his face. But some people know John Hamm more for his voice. So a lot of people would know me for my voice a little bit more because I did a little bit of podcasting before this. Again, one of the things that we have to consider for corporations at the payroll, labor is always on the chopping block. If you can get away without having to pay someone, that's what you're going to do. And the better that this gets, the more and more that I think it's going to be more of a dog-eat-dog world for voice actors, for recording artists. I think there's something to be said more about voice actors in the line of work of expressive animation, anything that, is really in a deep piece of media or artwork or piece of culture, because you have to have someone who's able to really bring humanity into that performance. So I think that they'll be fine, and maybe I'm freaking out about this over nothing. It certainly shouldn't be a reason for me not to pursue that line of work if it does possibly work very well for me. Let's listen to another one real quick. I love this.
Next 4 days.
Sample 2.
Currently beyond the. These take the shape of a long round arch with its path high above and its two ends apparently beyond the horizon. Take a look at these pages for Crooked Creek Drive. There are several listings for gas station. Here's the forecast for the next 4 days.
It's crazy.
Absolutely
it's crazy.
incredible.
You tie this in with deepfakes, and you can get the president to say whatever you want him to say. Short clip, something crazy, like I'm pressing the button, it's over. Like it could totally happen. It's super bizarre world that we're reaching, and there's always been something said about like they've got this technology, you can guarantee that the military's had it for 5 years longer. I don't trust anything that I see on the internet these days because it can all just be absolutely fake. It's crazy. It's crazy. Like, used well, this could be absolutely amazing. I mean, sometimes maybe I don't want to like get in front of the camera tonight, but I could just like, write out some sentences, use a quick deepfake algorithm, and like there I am. I can make myself look a little bit more chipper, a little bit more happy, and you wouldn't even be the wiser for it. I was really looking forward to Samsung's Neon. I think it was called Neon. It was a little bit of a disappointment at CES, but we'll go ahead and just take a look because it was impressive. It was an impressive pitch that they put. Let me see here. They were trying to say that all of these humans were artificial intelligence. Man, I'm not going to get paid for this. What's even the point? Was that Star Trek? Oh my gosh, Picard? Wait, what? Ooh, I love me some Star Trek. Oh no, it worked. They got to me. They got to me. All right. These are all supposed to be completely human-generated AI assistants that will be the next best thing to Siri. It's playing. All right. And they really did not turn out well at all, but I do think that we could see us having types of experiences, having types of assistants that do meet this caliber in the future. There, you can see that they're able to like have the outline of the person next to it where they change things like how happy they are, how sad they are, their mannerisms, but there's still a lot of uncanny valley. You can, I don't want to see this guy talking right now. CES is my favorite time of year, and I can't wait to do a video specifically about some of the tech that's coming out of this conference. And hopefully one year I could go myself, get myself one of those tags. That video was a disappointment. I should have been prepared before we started this. So yeah, automation tech increasingly heading our way. Where's my channel here? This tech is fascinating and more than a little scary. Yeah, I agree. As with all technology, it can totally upend our lives, but if used well, it could totally change everything. I've talked a lot about how I think that call center work should be a thing of the past. It shouldn't be acceptable to have such a brutal line of work still in existence. And this type of technology, WaveNet, could be used to create interactions, tech service, customer care service, that you could get at least tier 1 customer service completely done by an algorithm. And it would be so much better. You could get millions of people out of a line of work that is just grueling, terrible work. But then, of course, you've got a whole bunch of people who no longer have that as a line of work to do. Universal basic income. Universal basic income. That's exactly why we. Great, Seth. Did you know that if food waste was a country, it would be the 3rd highest contributor to global emissions alone after the U.S. and China, and no country wastes more food than the. Yeah, it's absurd, and the laws against feeding the poor, while I can understand the reason why they may be there, make it even more absurd. We have so much waste, and I can totally see how, especially once clean meat, manufactured meat, cultured meat, lab-grown meat becomes more and more prevalent, we could really begin to, especially considering our problems with agriculture, given climate change, again, my anxieties, offloading them, I think we could really get to a solution of ending mass hunger, getting these into places that really need them, and also making it not so acceptable to waste so much food. I'm really trying to keep a closer eye on that industry, and I'm so hopeful. I've seen good things and bad things. It seems like there's a question of whether or not they can get these bioreactors to scale. The FD would solve this food waste issue to a large extent. Yeah, I also agree that the freedom dividend alone would help with that tremendously. But there's also some reason to think that it might contribute to a little bit more waste. Given that when I was working at a restaurant turning tables, I saw people who would order something, take bites, and really the plate would be untouched, and this is sad, but I would be like, I take this food. But no, as soon as someone's hands touch that plate, it's done. You're throwing it in the trash. I'm talking trash bags and trash bags and trash bags. Just uneaten food. Killed me. It killed me seeing how we treat this abundance. It's insane. It's absolutely insane. Regenerative agriculture. Please look it up. All right, you've got it. I'm going to look it up because that sounds like something I absolutely pay attention to. Oh my gosh. And it's at 9 o'clock. I made it an hour. I was actually thinking I might have to cut this short 30 minutes because I was going to be so rusty. But look at that. Let's see here. Had to leave the other Yang live stream. Too many trolls. Adrian, tell me a little bit about what the trolls were doing in there. Was this the Zach and Matt show? I was wanting to kind of hang along and be a part of that as well, and I felt a little bit bad for taking some of the other people out. But thank you for joining me in my stream nonetheless. I'm interested to know what kind of trolls were showing up in that chat, because normally I have not seen a lot of that occurring. Regenerative agriculture, sequester CO2, build soil, improve health, increase farm income by 3 to 5%. I love it. I haven't understood completely some of the degeneration that's happening with our soil, but I know that it's a huge, massive issue. But does it sound like sequestering CO2 is something that can help with that? Please, I hope that's the case. Move some of this anxiety off of me. We need to start work. It was insane. Who said it? Who said something about... Was it Mitt Romney? I don't know. They were like, no. It was Ron Paul. Ron Paul made a tweet. He was like, we need to start learning how to get away from the earth. Climate change isn't a man-made thing. It would be better too, though, if we put all of our focus into becoming an interplanetary civilization. And someone pointed out, he was like, you believe in climate change for every other planet except Earth. Like, look at what you're talking about. Understanding human-made climate change is actually an important thing, because it would open the door to understanding that we can terraform, that we can actually begin to alter the climate around us for the benefit of the world. Someone said something like, hey, ask any child at the age of 12 or 13 today if they've ever seen a butterfly or a dragonfly. And then I thought, oh my God, I haven't seen a butterfly or a dragonfly in a long time. And I live in the South. I don't live near a city or anything like that. So stuff like that freaks me out. Stuff like that really freaks me out. No, we're gonna be okay, right? We're gonna be okay. It's gonna. Most CO2 increases due to the destruction of soil. I'm an environmental educator, University of Michigan School of Natural Resources. Okay, this is awesome. You've got a lot of information that's probably going to be great. Maybe I'll reach out for you. You wouldn't be interested in a live stream, would you? Because I'm really interested in the ways that some of the doom and gloom that we keep on talking about is being overlooked, or the solutions, the technological solutions that we could have are being overlooked in terms of just wanting to believe everything's collapsing and we can't get anything. Regenerative agriculture, I'm going to look into it, absolutely. That's really cool. The solution to the food waste is simple. It comes down to the math. We grow too much and raise too much. If farmers have better numbers, then they would produce what they can sell. Yeah, agriculture is the #1 industry in my state. And I kind of like want to reach out and say, listen, truck driving's big, 29 states. But if agriculture is the biggest that I have here, clean meat, lab cultured meat is going to also come into play and disrupt current existing agriculture, which is important considering that agriculture gives off a massive amount of CO2, methane, I believe, through from the cows, which is just so insane because like people on the right go, oh my gosh, they want us to get rid of cows. No, yeah, they take up so much land. We use so much water to feed the crops that they're growing. It's completely inefficient. If you could just grow these in a lab, we could save money, we could save land, we could save water. It would really change the world. That's why I'm really hoping that that could exist, but it's going to disrupt, again, another technology that's going to disrupt massive, massive areas of industry, along with truck driving, along with WaveNet, along with synthesized voices and algorithms and machine learning. All of these things, man, they're just around the corner. And New York Times editorial board endorses Amy Klobuchar and Elizabeth Warren to be president of the United States. And they have no clue. They have no clue. They're not talking about it. This isn't being discussed on the debate stage. I'm going crazy. What is happening? Like, this is so bizarre. I never imagined that something like this would happen. Seth, what state do you live in? I live in Alabama. I am a little bit north of you. But still, I'm just a country boy. And it's beyond me to see the ways that our government is running itself right now. And to the more city areas, a train is coming our way and we have to jump out of the way. It's just absolutely bizarre. I do think, though, that the South has a reason to rally behind Yang. And he's speaking to a lot of people here in the South who see exactly what it is that he has to offer. And hopefully I'm going to be meeting up with some local Yang Gang members this weekend, perhaps. I'm not too sure. And maybe I'll have a better idea of just how strong the movement is here. Grocery stores only want perfect produce, so the imperfect food goes to waste. Most stores don't even have a reduced produce section anymore. Yeah, that's a mess too. I'm one of the people who cannot stand any spots on my fruit and vegetables, and I feel so bad about that. But they're great for juicing, and just the fact that they don't offer those is absurd and insane. We have to find some kind of way, maybe like a public service announcement or some kind of congressional movement to get people to eat better and eat healthier. That makes so much sense. Would mushroom farming help with improving the soil? I've heard that morels might be the next big alternative crop in Iowa. I believe fungi will change the world in more ways than one, and there is so much importance in a healthy biome, and mushrooms often take a huge role in making it happen. I would be interested to see a Mind with Heart's answer to that. But all in all, it's been a pretty successful Securing the Bag night tonight. Thank you guys for joining me. I hope that you're all having a wonderful night tonight. I hope that's a good start to the rest of your week. Again, hopefully I will be here tomorrow at 8, but if there's just nothing to talk about, maybe I won't be. I'm going to see about possibly getting some more guests live on the show and getting more content out just a little bit more often, because again, everything has changed since I made this channel. It's so absolutely transformative. I want to detail and show what it is, what it means to be someone who now able to breathe because my basic needs are taken care of, someone who does untraditional work and questionably may or may not be adding value to society. I want to talk about these things, and maybe I'll just spend some of my live streams doing that and talking about that. And if anyone's got questions, or if anyone, believes that that's complete BS, I'm open to hearing your thoughts about that as well. I can't remember exactly, but don't we produce enough extra food in the US to feed Africa or several third world countries? We overproduce, but don't ship off a lot of the extra because of the expense. Yes, the expense and the fact that it's often just, it's hard to get food over there without it perishing, which honestly I think is a bit of a cop-out because we fixed perishable good issues for quite some time now. The really interesting thing about lab-grown meat is that you can get this bioreactor anywhere, and it can become a self-sufficient point of origin for abundant food anywhere in the world. Should we be able to get this right, it would basically be the means of production for food, democratized, decentralized. You know, if we can get this right, that's why I think it has the potential to be absolutely transformative. Seth, I'm going to link you a couple videos in your comment area. Please check it out. All right, you got it, John. Mushrooms can be a good crop in very small spaces. You can make excellent compost with the leftover medium. You love mushrooms. I really want to study mushrooms for a little bit because I can do that now with the time that I have been given. I can continue to learn more, and you know, there's something to be said about self-education. It may or may not be a perfect way of doing things, but I love learning more things, and having the time to do that, to invest your time learning new things, that's huge. Another aspect of universal basic income. Everyone, thank you so much for joining the Securing the Bag live stream. This has been the Dividend Report. I was your host, Seth, and I hope to see you back here possibly tomorrow night at 8, but definitely Wednesday because it's hump day, and that's halfway through. And if I'm going to do this all week, I have to be there Wednesday at least. I appreciate everything that y'all have done for me, and I hope that abundance finds its way into your life. And am I missing anything? I feel like I'm missing something. I don't know. We're just going to cut it there. And thank you guys. Y'all have a good night.